Now when I go to my tornado technique, right, I can explain what I do based on what I know about that person. Remember earlier when you asked the question, like, well, what if he doesn't do this? Or when Gabrielle's like, oh, what if he invests money or doesn't? The more you know about the person when you're talking to them, the better you can position. So if I was talking to you, Pablo, and I knew that you had done enterprise software and you happen to work in asset management, you would have a better understanding of my Rona product. I would explain it to you in a way that you would make sense, and I might explain RonaStar to you. Ray, I find out Ray's in entertainment, I'm explaining Magmo to Ray because I need Roar, Brillstein Gray, Paradigm. You know, I need the head of marketing at 20th Century Fox, Bill Termini. I need, you know, the head of Amazon Studios, which used to work for Mark. Like, my conversation point with Ray is completely different than here, which is different than Gabrielle, which I would talk about the company we have, which is called Sutton Selects, which is in the food industry and discovers amazing foods and is looking for $5 million. Like, I can be different person to different people based on their background once I know what their background is. Right, so that's when I was saying that I might go deeper into what I do, but I'm going to go deeper if I know what that person does. So if I know Gabrielle does more in restaurants, I would ask her more about what kind of funding, what kind of companies you work with. You know, is it food products or franchise? Is it QSRs or something, quick serve restaurants or something different? And, you know, if it happens to be food products that are on shelves, I've got guys in Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. If it, like, I can position what I'm doing to help her. You know, she's trying to get into the market. She may want Mike Shaw from Whole Foods. She may want, you know, the guys from Savante who was at Cisco for 25 years. It's like, you get to know more about what people are doing. So the referral currency is basically we'll catch back up here. The reverse tornado is where you're building the referral currency. This is the psychological burn. Again, I call it psychological jiu-jitsu, but it's not meant to be nefarious. I'm not trying to sneak up and take advantage. I'm really trying to help you. But I need help too, and what I need help with is what I do isn't important. What I need is important. Right? So this is how you can more effectively manage networking events. You can more effectively manage entrepreneurial events where you don't know who you're talking to and it's a bunch of bumblebees and name tags and randomly bumper card into each other. You don't have time, right? We need to be more efficient, and people we're talking to aren't usually efficient, so we just reverse the tornado technique to help get them to the point we need to get them to. Okay? All right, step 6, learn to call a referral. This one to me, I used to teach a lot, and then I stopped teaching it because nobody makes phone calls. And now I teach it again because the most interesting thing, years ago, when I was doing sales training, I would get my phone bill and I was on the phone about 8,000 minutes a month. And people would say, oh, that's impossible. No, we did the math. 8,000 minutes a month, if you're working 6 or 7 days a week, is about 45 hours a week. Well, if I'm working 60, most of my job in sales was on the phone. Pretty easy. I'm on the phone 40, 45 hours a week out of the 60 I'm working. Right? But we did the math, and it's like a lot of time on the phone. And then it moved to email. Right now it's past email, it's text. I have like a text client on my computer. You know, I'm texting, and I feel guilty. Because to me, texting feels like I'm playing and wasting time, but I'm firing off 40, 50, 60 text messages in a row because I can type on my computer, not my phone. So now it's another business tool. But what I learned is I'll email people, and I will email them. I just did it this morning. I sent out 17 emails, some of which are 5 months old. And the first time I meet somebody, I write a great email. You and I met at College of the Canyons here. And then the follow-up email is just sending you the below again. Look forward to hearing from you. Hey, you might have missed this email, hoping to hear from you. I'll just keep forwarding the same email over and over and over again. I don't rewrite them. I have a follow-up folder, and just I keep forwarding the same thing.
How many times?
6 months, 9 months, a year, doesn't matter.
The stalking.
He's in somebody's junk.
Sometimes it is. Some guys will call me 6 months later, like, oh my God, I just found this. It was in the junk mail. I'm so sorry. Like, no problem. Yeah. Guy just emailed me back today. I met him 2 months ago, and he offered to help. There was some really cool stuff that we could do together. So I just kept sending him an email. And he called me back today. He's like, I'm so sorry, I was traveling on the road. Yeah, I'm going to have my brother call you today. It's a guy named Chris Tucker. I don't know if you guys know the comedian Chris guy, black comedian guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, finally got there. He's like, oh man, I'm so sorry, I'm having my brother. I'm like, no problem, I'm just trying to help you make money. Smiley face. But the point is, anymore now, and I don't do this myself, I need to hold myself more accountable. There's people who I'm more comfortable just firing up emails, but anymore when I pick up the phone and call people, they answer the phone. Because nobody calls anymore.
It happens so rarely.
Yeah, so
Like
there's a benefit in learning how to actually call because nobody calls anymore. I was baffled at the people. I've sent guys, like I was trying to do something with the milking conference, and I sent a guy I've known for 6 months. I kept sending Ross an email. Like, Ross, let's catch up. I saw Mr. Milk, and I'm like, Michael, I want to get hold of Ross. He said, hey, he's in the office every day. Just call him. Next day I called. That guy spoke to Ross. Yeah, no problem. I'll put you right through. 6 months of sending the guy email. It wasn't really avoiding. These guys just get hundreds of emails a day and nobody calls them.
Yeah.
All right, so the point of this is if you get good at tornado technique and referrals, people will end up giving you referrals of the people you want to get to, which are high-level people. There's a way to call a referral and there's a way to not call. All right, and so here's how you don't do it and why you don't do it that way. All right, so who wants to role play with me? All right, Gabrielle. So I'm calling, ring, ring, ring. You're just going to answer. Ring, ring, ring.
Hello, this is Gabriela.
Gabriela, hey, this is Steve and me. Listen, the reason I'm calling you is because I got your name from... You guys ever had that happen, right? You pick the phone up, and here's what's going on. Now, we can do this, right? Age appropriate, caller ID, right? Remember the non-caller ID days when you had no idea? Now it's like, oh, who is this? They're not on my phone. Do I answer? Do I not? Right? We all go through that judgment call, and you're like, Gabrielle's going to be like, oh, 312, Chicago. Do I know anybody in Chicago?
Don't answer.
Hello? Yeah, but that's just it. Either you don't answer, but if you do, we're answering with trepidation, and the worst is when you answer and somebody just jumps right in, and you're like, oh, God, here we go. Right? So that's the wrong way to do it. What you don't want to do is just jump right in. Here's the way you want to do it. If somebody calls, ring, 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 let's do it again, ring, 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 ring.
Hello, this is Gabriela.
Hey, Gabriela, this is Steve and Meade. How are you?
Good, thank you. Who is this, please?
Exactly. You guys see the mistake I made? Hi, this is Steve and Meade. Pause. You cannot pause. The minute you pause, you're dead. She's like, who are you? Why are you calling me? Right? That wasn't even coaching. It's like, oh, who? Right? The way it works is this just about 8 seconds, and it moves you through a psychological sequence in the brain very quickly. This is the last time, I promise. Ring, ring, ring.
Hello, this is Gabriela.
Hey, Gabriela, this is Steve and Meade. Listen, I got your name and number from Pablo at College of the Canyons the other day. Did I catch you at a good time?
Well, where are you coming from?
Yeah, well, hold on. The reason... You're tough. No, it's okay.
A lot of,
No. Here's the thing. But if I hadn't used Pablo, if I had used Gala, right? The point is, if I'm calling you as a referral, I'm calling you as somebody you know. So it didn't make sense because you and Pablo don't know each other. But if I was given your name, if you and Gala worked together, I said, hey, I got your name from Gala over at the College of Canyons with the DNC or the DNRs or
whatever we
the
are.
DNIs or whatever you guys do, did I catch you at a good time? The point is my name is irrelevant. Your mind's already trying to figure out who you are and why you know me. Now I've moved to Gala, your mind shifts to, oh, I know her. Why did she get, but the credibility now lies on her. And then the consideration is, did I catch you at a good time? Your calculation of whether you talk to me is based on her and your relationship, not me.
So you have to use somebody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If I'm getting referred into somebody, right? Like if I sent Ray to talk to Bill Cameron, and Ray just said, hey, Bill, this is Ray. Yeah, like who, what? If Ray said, hey, Bill, this is, Ray, I got your name and number from Steve and Meade. Did I catch you at a good time? The credibility lies with me of whether or not he'll talk to Ray. Right? So you can't pause at any one of those points, but the consideration point is, did I catch you at a good time? And invariably, most people say, yeah, or yeah, I've got a second. Great, here's specifically why I'm calling. or no, then great, is there a better time I can follow up with you? Right? But if they say yes, it's your job then to know what that point of interest is, why you're calling, you know.
Do your homework first.
Do your homework, how you can help them, right? But calling a referral is much easier these days, but the credibility lies with the person giving you the referral. And that was the point, Gabrielle, is if I had said Gala, you would at least say, oh, okay, yeah, I've got a second,
Yeah.
right? So that's where calling the referral kind of comes in that way.
So if they say yes, we go with the tornado thing again?
Well, it's yeah, specifically the reason I was calling is Gayla had mentioned that you're expanding a business in the restaurant space, working on some consultant stuff, and we've got a couple projects she thought you might have been interested in. I'd love to share them with you. Right, so it's about her, what the point, now granted, I want her to fund my companies, that's why I'm calling her, but I'm not calling her has anything to do, oh, well, I've got these great companies that I think you should look at. It's like, no.
Yeah, because it will be a cold goal if you don't really do something.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's what I can do for you.
Right, but yeah, if I know that her job is, and I'm making it up because limited information, but her job is helping find funding and for companies in the restaurant space, then I've got something that might help her with that goal. You know, but then it will come down to, you know, what's your project size, how far along are the companies you're looking for, you know, oh, okay, well, I have something that might fit in there, can I share it with you, or, you know what, that's great to know, I don't have anything that fits, it's not going to waste your time, but if possible, you know, can I keep in touch and send you something? And it all comes down to asking, I'll share it now, because I've sent this guy 2 deals, and it's really the strangest thing. This will come up on step 9, which we'll finish up with, but when you get to this point of asking questions, right, I'll show you guys how to ask questions of somebody in a level of importance at the end, but this one's kind of interesting. I was in a meeting in New York with a guy, and he's with a huge company. There's 3 of the biggest companies in the world in the finance industry. There's BlackRock, there's Evercore, and there's Avenue. I mean, he works in one of those 3. And they've got presidential connections and stuff. And at the end of the meeting, I was like, okay, I won't say his name just for reference, but I was like, all right, well, you know, all this stuff, like what's the project you're working on? Like what's the biggest one that you're trying to get done? And I knew it would be probably out of my range, like most of the stuff they do. But sometimes the questions and answers you get are different. You know, but this particular one, he's like, well, yeah, we've got a public company and we're sitting on $3 billion cash, and it's a trading company, so it's just trading right now on the currency, but we really want to try and buy a company that wants to go public and we can accelerate them into the market. It's like, all right, what size? Like I'm asking questions, I don't want to waste the time. I said, you probably want something 100 to 300 in sales and revenue. That was me being naive. That's him patting me on the head, going, yeah, little boy. It's like, no, you know, we need like 300 or more in EBITDA, which, if you guys don't find, revenue, EBITDA is like earning before
interest.
Yeah, that's like a multi-billion-dollar company, and I'm going, oh, like 100 to 300 million in sales. He's like, no. But what I learned is, here's his parameters. They need this, they want this, they like this industry. Well, because I know that in certain conversations with friends of mine in that space, I'm able to ask them. I'm with a friend of mine who's got a $4.5 billion company. They want to go public next year. Their EBITDA is right at that target range. He's in New York. I'm like, oh, you guys should meet. So it wasn't a deal that my deals are too small for them, but I'm still able to add value and send them deals because I know enough. So if I knew what Gabriella was looking for, even if it didn't fit for me, I would still try and send her something, which is just going to build referral currency for something I may need later. You know, or it may have her come back and say, hey, I know your deals are too small, but here's 3 guys that like your stage, you know, you should talk to. All right, so it's all about just kind of building that referral currency in a specific way. So that's step 6. Learn to make an introduction. This one should be pretty easy for us by now. An introduction isn't, hey, Gabrielle, you and Ray should meet. You guys that have a lot to talk about, right? Like, hey, Pablo, you guys should talk to Gayla. Like, if we're at events, that's what happens. Oh, you guys should talk. Oh, come here, meet them. No. Here's Ray. Here's his background. Here's kind of what he does. Here's Gabriella. Here's hers. Here's here's where I think you guys have a point of commonality or point of interest.
Mm-hmm.
What ends up happening is if you establish that mutual value in the conversation point,
Mm-hmm.
then you at least set the stage for both people to have a conversation. Right? So do a little bit. It's like, here's so-and-so, here's what he does, he's looking for this, here's the other person, right? But what you're doing, especially because I do a lot of networking events, and it's funny, and it's not to impress you, it's kind of like impress upon you. I can go I was just at the Milken conference. You guys know Milken Global? It's really cool event. I'm able to stand there in the hallway with people coming by that I know who are stopping and talking to me and making introductions, but through the course of the days, they're bringing me people because A, they know what I'm looking for because tornado technique, but B, I've built a referral currency because I'm making introductions for them, which just adds and establishes value. So when I'm at an event, I end up finding ways to have people in the event working to send me people by learning how to make simplistic introductions that add value. And the reason I put this in my opinion, there's a difference between refer and recommend. You know, people all the time are like, well, what if I have 17,000 people in my database? They're like, oh, well, how? You know, there's a difference between recommend and refer, right? If you wanted to meet Bill Cameron or James Cameron, you know, I might refer you over. Hey, Bill, I just met Pablo. He sat in an event that I did. It's got something that might be interesting for you. If you want to take a look, let me know. I'll put you in touch. I'm going to recommend Ray because I've known Ray. I know the projects. I know what he's done. So I protect my credible interest by how I frame it, but I'm not afraid to make introductions. I just make an introduction in the right way of a difference between refer and recommend. And this was, I think, important because there's guys in Chicago years ago like, oh, I can't make an introduction. I only have so many bullets in my gun. Like, you only have so many bullets. That means you can only shoot at a guy that have anything. Like, didn't get it, right? But I also, if you know what the other people are looking for, kind of my point of the $3 billion company, I'm not going to send this guy 15 deals because he's one of the largest companies in the world. I'm going to send him 2 deals that are in the space that make sense. So recommend and refer is cool, but you can get really good at introductions by knowing what people want. Number 8, take meetings early and often. The last ones get really easy. These are more just things I've learned along the ways. If you're trying to expand a business, if you're going into consulting, if you're trying to launch a new tech company, take meetings early and often. And you know, we do that because I run our 9th tech company, and I always take meetings early, but I'm going in humble, saying, hey, here's what we're building. Why won't this work? You know, what would we do to one day what would we need to do to one day be able to do business with a company your size? Like, hey, here's what we're building. Is this something that might make sense for you one day? You know, if we built this, what do you think you guys would use? What's our competition? Who else have you seen? Like, we're going in a lot of times exploratory, but take meetings early and often. This one is big. I teach this on a lot of entertainment people because I'm in LA. I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to get a manager, and then I'm not going to get this guy, and then I'm going to get an agent, but I'm going to get an agent when I'm ready. Like, what do you mean? Well, I want an agent. Like, who? Well, I don't know. I want CAA. I'm like, who? Like 2,800 agents. They're all specialized. Like, you want television? You want scripted? You want reality? You want like, you don't even know who. Okay, so let's find out who. And if you could get a meeting with that guy or girl, you take the meeting, but you don't go in overselling yourself as some great. It's like, hey, what would it take to one day be represented by you? Right? I'd love to be represented by you at CAA. I know you've got these 4 clients. You launched these careers. Here's where I am in my career. What do I need to get better? What would you recommend? And what you're doing is you're establishing a point of introduction by being humble and taking meetings early and often, but you're also opening up those relationships for future conversations. So, take meetings early and often. What do I need to do to one day business? What would it take to make this happen? Things like that. Number 9 is ask great questions. I think you guys have seen a lot of that. A lot of what this is about is just really learning about how to be specific and isolated and targeted in your questions, and having a format in the sequence of questions and thoughts where people can help you. All right, so when you're in talking to people, you're trying to find out what's in it for the other person, how can you add value, how can you get better, all right? But this is the wrong way to ask. So this used to run out in an animation and it didn't, but that's okay. If I were to ask, right, so you were Spielberg, you didn't give me a person, you didn't give me an author yet, you didn't give me one. I don't want to keep using Ray, but we will. If any of you, because most of us know Spielberg by name, not personally. If you were in a meeting, if you had the opportunity to meet a Spielberg, an Oprah, a Bill Gates, right? You mentioned Bill Gates earlier. What do you think is the one question that's almost never asked of somebody in a position of power? Oh, well, how can I help you? Right? So to begin with, that question's almost never asked because it's Bill Gates. It's Spielberg. Like, what could you do? So number one, that question's almost never asked, so people don't ask it. Right? The pictures we tell ourselves are self-worth. But two, that's the absolute wrong way to ask. Because what you'll get is a pejorative pat on the head, not a pat on the butt anymore, because it's, we'll get in trouble. In the old days, whatever. But, oh no, hey, how can I help you, Mr. Spielberg? Oh no, I'm fine with you. Well, we're doing great. Mr. Gates, how can I help you? Oh no, we asked the question the wrong way. They don't think that way. They think in specifics. So the question is, hey, Mr. Spielberg, out of everything you're working on, which is amazing, what are the 2 or 3 projects you're most passionate about? What are the 2 or 3 things you're most passionate about and the problems you're trying to solve? Hey, Mr. Gates, with everything you're trying to accomplish in the world, what are the 1 or 2 biggest global problems that you're passionate about trying to save? It's always what are the 1 or 2 or 2 or 3. It's what are the 2 or 3 things you're most passionate about? What are the 1 or 2 problems you're trying to solve? What are the 1 or 2 issues you have a problem with? And I've done this so many times. I was with a guy that's a friend of mine named Paul Phipps. He's CIO of Under Armour. And I met Paul a couple years ago, and when we first met, actually, so I was curious, right? I was just fascinated. I'm like, CIO? I really don't know what that, like, what do you do as a CIO of Under Armour? What does that even mean? Like, I was genuinely interested. Oh, we do this and this and this, and I was listening to him, and he's a rock star, not good, and I'm like trying to follow him, and I said, all right, I have a different question for you. This year coming up, because it was at CES in January, I said, this year, what are the 1 or 2 biggest problems you're trying to solve? Like, what's on your plate as CIO that's a problem you're trying to solve? And he looks at me and goes, oh, he goes, well, to the stuff we talked about. He goes, oh, he goes, actually, we're trying to fix our supply chain. Because we're a $4.2 billion company, we want to go to $7 billion in revenue. To do that, we need international expansion. We've really got a problem with how our supply chain comes in, and we're really trying to get a handle on that. We don't know what to do. And I'm like, so do you know people in the supply chain space? Well, not really. I'm like, oh, okay, Paul, I'll tell you what. Here's who I know. Phil created Logistics. My friend Toby ran Motorola. This guy ran, like I was in that space. It would have never come up if I didn't ask a specific question. It just happened to be in a space where I knew 5 of top people in the world that could send him and help him solve a problem. All right? So it was being specific. What are the top 2 or 3 things you do outside of work? Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to share one more story with you because you can probably help me on this one. I have to go back and do some research. This is the story I usually tell. I like the Paul Phipps one because it's relevant to time. But years ago, I was working with a guy who was chief of staff of NASA. 4 presidential administrations. Every story between NASA and the president went through him. Like, we're talking about aliens and pure, like, fun stuff. But one time I asked him, I said, Courtney, outside of all of the government stuff, like, what are you most passionate about outside of work? Like, what are you passionate about? What are you trying to do? And he got quiet for a minute, and then he started telling me his story, and sometimes I can get to it, sometimes I can't. And I'll tell you guys the story, but also don't hold it against me if I get the religious terms wrong. But he goes, well, it was actually, you're in LA, you probably could help me. It was a quick little story. He goes, years ago, in the concentration camps during the Holocaust, the Jewish priests or ministers, I think they're the priests,
right.
The rabbis.
Mm-hmm.
They smuggled into camp a tiny Torah. And it was a very famous religious document, and they all used it to pray with, and they knew that if they got caught with it, they were going to get killed. They thought they were going to get killed anyway, but at the end of the war, this document was smuggled back out. And the tiny Torah is very important in the Jewish community. It's a great religious artifact. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Because what we decided to do was, because we decided to send it up in space with the first Israeli astronaut ever, to get it as close to God as possible. And I'm sitting like, it's kind of cool. He goes, yeah, that was on the Challenger. And it blew up. He goes, I want to do a documentary about the tiny Torah. And we've been trying to put it together, but I'm in DC. I don't know. Do you know anybody that can help me? Right? And Ray kind of knows. I know entertainment people, but I don't do entertainment. I was like, well, I know the guys that just did the Mel Gibson film thing. I know they like religious content. My other friends run Good News Now. I'm like, yeah, I got 3 or 4 people. I'll send them to you. 3.5 years later, because of the 4 people I sent them to, the tiny Torah got done. They changed the name. That's why I need to go find out. But they ended up doing a documentary on this religious document. So it was just because of how I asked, would have never come up. Right? But it's like, what's the one thing you're most passionate about? But what this does, guys, this gives you an open door. If you really had a meeting with Bill Gates, and you knew the 2 or 3 things he was most passionate about, you have an open door to send him somebody that could potentially solve his problem. That's what we're trying to do with this. So always take the meetings early just to find out what you can do to help the other person. All right? Number 10, in closing, become a good negotiator no matter what you do. Right? Have you guys ever seen the show Pawn Stars? A lot of psychology in Pawn Stars, right? I can teach you guys, there are 3 specific things for negotiation. The first one is the absolute most important. And I can teach it to you, again, this is like name that tune, in half a second. You guys believe me? Teach you the best negotiation technique ever in half a second. Right? But before I teach you, I'm going to show you how it works. So I'm about to sell this Logitech to poor Pablo. Alright? So role play with me. Don't be tough like Gabriella is. Like play along. Alright? So I'm about to sell this for $10,000. Alright? And I'm going to tell you that it's great, and I'm going to offer it to you for $10,000, and I want you to offer me $7,000 for it. Alright, so just role play with me when we do it and watch my response, and then I want all of you to internalize what your first thought is when this happens. Alright, so Pablo, this is an amazing, it's a Logitech, I think it's got a laser printer on it, it does, look at that, and I'm looking for 10 grand for it. What do you think?
Oh, that's a little bit too much. What about $7,000?
Okay, I'll take 7, here. What do you guys think?
You upsold it. You said 10 so I could tell you 7. If you would have told me 7, I would have given you 5.
Right, but no, I hear you, but what you should be thinking is, I could have got it for less, because I didn't flinch.
Yeah.
See, the point of what I was showing is, when you said 7, I'm like, okay, here.
Yeah.
What goes through people's mind is, I could have got it for less, what's wrong with it, could have got a better deal.
Oh, okay, I see that.
Right? So, watch if we do it again. This is why I said the half-second negotiation is called the flinch factor. Hey, 10,000, what do you think? Offer me 7.
Oh, that's too much. Can I give you 7?
7. Man, I love this thing. It's been amazing. Like that laser is one of the strongest lasers I don't think I could do 7. Like, here's the point. Now we're in negotiation. Even if I gave it to him at 7, he's going to feel better about it.
I think I got a good deal.
Think he got a good deal. Right? If I had wanted more, right? If I had wanted 10, see the difference is with Pawn Star guys, they do it in reverse. So always flinch. But even if the offer, right, the second part of it is he who speaks first loses, so you're going to reverse it. If I had an offer and I said, hey, make me an offer on it, and you offered me 11, and I really wanted 10, I'm still going to flinch. 11, boy, Maybe only if I do, it's only because I really like you, right? Because in my mind I wanted 10. If they're 11, I'm like 11. Shoot, are you kidding me here? Right? So the flinch is always the important part for the psychology for you and the other person, right? The way the Pawn Star guys work, it's really fascinating. It's in reverse, and there's a clip out there I'm trying to get with Katie Couric, where Katie goes in to buy, and it's hilarious because behind the scenes they're like, well, you know, we're going to get 15 for this, and they're like, oh, well, what do you want? And they offered more, and then she came in and negotiated down, and she paid 18 and felt great about it because of the way they negotiated. So they got more, but she still felt good about it, right? So the Pawn Star guy's work is in reverse. He who speaks first loses. So when they walk in, and if I'm trying to sell this, right, the situation's reversed. This is me trying to sell it, and Pablo's the Pawn Star guy. What's the first question that they ask? Do you guys know?
How much do you want for it?
Right. Well, first they say, do you want to sell it or pawn?
What are you
Then they
looking to
say
get
sell
for
it.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, how much do you want for it? So now the burden's back on me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I have to put it in. Well, you know, I'm really looking at like 10 grand. And the first thing they always do is,
Yeah.
I've seen like 5 of these things in the last week.
Yeah.
You know, it's got some tape on it that's kind of crooked. You still got some Velcro on the back. I mean, most I can do is like 7. So they flinch. No matter what, every price they're flinching. Then they counter, and then they shut up. So if you guys actually watch, it's like most I can do is 7. And they'll stand there. Because he who speaks first loses. So when you ask the closing question, you sit there. And they'll stand there and they'll wait, and the guy on the other side is, well, how about 8,500? And they got him.
Nope.
Right? Now they're in the negotiation. He came back, they countered. Right? So the flinch in the negotiation is the most important part. Super easy to learn. Just flinch no matter what. People will give you a better deal. You should try it even like when you're buying retail stuff. I've done it at Best Buy and things. Even with it there, I'm like, man, it's $1,200 for that TV. Be sure, and the guy will be like, well, we price matched. We did see it at Amazon at $9.99. I'm like, I'll take it for $9.99.
So do you get real good deals on your cars when you buy cars?
Yeah, because if you just flinch, there's already movement and margin in there. Even if you think it's a good deal, I still flinch.
But when you buy a car, you have to be careful. You could spend all day flinching.
Yeah.
Yeah. And be ready to walk out. That's basically flinching. You know, walk out and then they'll come and get you from
Be willing to walk
parking lot.
away. Yep. Yeah, so this one I learned when I was in my 20s, and this one cost me a ton of money. Like hundreds, I'm not over, hundreds of millions, actually 350 million to be specific, because I didn't flinch in a negotiation with the guy. I negotiated on everything except the final price, and he gave me a number, and my number was higher than his. And I didn't flinch because his number was different, right? So I had basically we had a buyout that said if the company reached a certain dollar amount, I could spin it out and we get a bigger percentage. And my number was here that it had to grow to. The CEO offered here, which was easier to attain. I'm like, great, done. The minute I signed, in retrospect, because we had to go through lawsuits and stuff, was, oh, well, hang on, I still have to go to my attorney, and because he knew I didn't flinch, he knew there was a better deal to be had. If I would have flinched, I probably could have got him lower than 350 million when my number was 500. So, live and learn, right? Flinch, always flinch. All right, wrapping up. Doesn't matter how many resources you have, if you don't know how to use them, never be enough. Experience is the greatest teacher. It is also the slowest. Great part about now, I mean, when I started out, it was all books, and then I went to audio tapes, and then podcasts. Now there's videos, there's content, there's so much out there. You can accelerate your experience and learning. Even on the negotiation stuff, I've read 3 books now on negotiation to distill out the things that I think are the 3 best parts. There's so many techniques and alternate advances and triplicate, so much cool stuff, but how do you find the simple pieces? The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. All right? This one again goes well in the South, LA. Anybody ever seen this? Eat like a bird, poop like an elephant. Bird takes in 50% of its body weight on a daily basis. That means just read a lot. Read. Like one of my hacks, I have a bunch of life hacks. One of my cool little life hacks is Blinkist. You guys know what Cliff Notes is? Cliff Notes missed the mark and never did Cliff Notes for mobile. Blinkist is basically Cliff Notes for mobile.
Oh, wow.
So I can read a book, it's basically 9 pages. So I can sit when I'm waiting on a meeting and flip through and read through a book now. You know, so try and take in a lot of information, but poop like an elephant means share a lot of that information as you get information in. Share the content back out. Few of my great truths, these are always fun ones. Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. Any of you guys know what your greatest strength is? Or want to guess? What's your greatest strength, Kayla?
Talking.
Okay. That could also be your
Greatest weakness. Yes.
You were talking?
Yes, and it's been consistent my entire life.
Usually works that way.
Yeah, that's why I went into teaching, because then you get paid for
Yeah,
your,
for
talking.
yes, paid for talking.
Perfect. Any idea?
I read with her.
Okay.
Creativity.
Okay.
I would say empathy.
Okay. So what we have to think about is if we know that's our strength, then we also know it's our weakness. How do we surround ourselves with other people to compensate? And mine, you guys didn't ask, but I'll share anyway, because people are like, well, what's yours? I know mine. Mine's easy. I can open any door. I can get to anybody at any level, anywhere in the world I want to get to. I can get to anybody because I know all of this. People are like, well, how's that a weakness? I open doors, I don't close them. So I'm good at starting companies, selling the vision, getting, like for me, going through and getting the guy excited is what I'm good at. Getting him through to close, yeah, not so much. I'd rather go sell the next new guy to say a verbal yes than to close the guy on a contractual yes.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm great at opening doors and interest and momentum and networking. I have to have people around me to close. Right? So if your greatest strength is creativity, then you need people around you to execute. If it's empathy, you might need a business manager or somebody else that is a little stronger when things are personal that you can't or don't want to deal with. So it's just, we have to surround ourselves. People do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. Right? So just understand a lot of the decision points are around that. People make decisions emotionally and defend them logically. We talked about that. That's why in that tornado technique, what's the emotional value of what you do? Right? The pictures, like the isolation picture. Right? The emotional side, it was dark. All of a sudden, it's a landscape and it's beautiful, and all of a sudden we feel better. Right? Ask not why, ask why not. Why not this be me? Why not I be the one that closed the deal? Why not I be the one that wins the next award? Right? So it's not why, it's why not me. If you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it's true. This one's big in sales. Also back in the negotiation. Right? If I tell you it's worth 10 grand, it's different than if you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it's true. If you tell me you want 8,500, I tell you so. Right? If someone says they love you, it doesn't matter until you say it back. Right? If you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it's true. So in sales, like we're doing now a financial services app. That's pretty simple. If we're doing financial services, and I sit down with Gayla as an agent, and I say, oh, well, how much do you have on savings, and how much you have this, and you have column. Like I'm asking a bunch of questions. The app is simple. It's going to give it to her, and she's going to put her own information in. Or now it's a puppy dog clothes. She's holding it. It's her information. And then in the end, the app's going to spit out and say, ask your financial services rep about the following products. And I'll say, oh, Gayla, well, what does it say? Oh, it says I need a savings account. Great, let me tell you. So it's just inverting a psychological process in the sales to get people to say, oh, I need savings account. Great, let me offer you one. Rather than me telling you you need it. So there's psychology in that. 3 R's, some people, other guys have used the 3 C's. I created them both. Credit, contacts, or compensation. I like recognition, referrals, or revenue. When you're working with people, if they help you, if they make introductions, give them recognition in front of a group. You know, Paula was great. Paula helped me, set this up. My friend Paul, things like that. Give them referrals to help their business, or give them revenue if there's money. If there's big transactions, I don't think people should always walk around with their hand out, trying to stick their hand in the middle of deals. But if deals happen, and you've made money by somebody's efforts, even if this is sending them a gift card or something, because sometimes you can't pay people. Questions are the key to the universe. This is all about asking great questions. Begin with the end in mind, that's where we started, right? Financials, what do you want your life to be like what's your projected outcome? Always switch, and he who speaks first loses. 99% of the things we worry about never happen, so why worry? People worry about all of these things, and it just, and I've taken this to the extreme. People are like, what's the weather like? I'm like, I don't know. Well, you just walk, is it hot out? I'm like, I don't know. Weather's going to be whatever it is. Well, wasn't it hot outside? I'm like, it could be. Aren't you cold? I'm like, I don't know. Just, no idea. Like, the weather's the weather, the time's the time, the age is the age. Like, but the 1% is what we have to deal with and prepare for. And then the last little thing, this is like some little bonus stuff, and then Q&A, and we'll kind of wrap up. Do any of you guys do networking events? You guys do some networking stuff? All right. These are my tips on networking. And most of them will help you. I'm all about efficiency. So number one, if I'm going to a conference, if I'm going to a networking event, I'll try and do my homework in advance. I'll see who's going. I'll look at the speakers and see who I know. I'll try and do some reconnaissance around that. I'll send an email in advance and say, hey, I'm going to this conference. Here's a list of all the speakers. If you know anybody on the speaker of the panel, I'd love an introduction. So a lot of times I'm going into these events, and I'm fortunate I get to go to some really cool events, like rock star stuff. But I'll leverage my network to get introductions to other people who are already there, who may be panelists or speakers, that I might not have otherwise been able to meet on my own. And again, it's just leveraging the introductions and the goodwill. If I don't know anybody, I'll find the host. And I'll say, hey, who's in here that I should meet specifically? Here's what I'm looking for. Again, tornado technique, I do this, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at these companies, these titles. And I'll be specific rather than say, no, well, who should I meet? Because there's 400 people here, I don't know. But if you know what you're looking for, then the host can help you. If all of that works or fails, look for the most popular person in the room. I call this the difference between hawks and puppy dogs. Right? I'm a hawk. I like to stand around and look, and I'll pick who to talk to. But if I can ever take puppy dogs with me, like John, have you ever met John Pattison? John's a puppy dog. I'm like, John, go talk to that guy, see what he does. Okay. I'll like run over and talk to somebody. I'm like, John, that lady looks important. Go talk to her. Okay. So to me, puppy dogs are like up, sniffing and waving their tail and just, right? I'll like stand back and pick people, but the most popular person in the room a lot of times is that puppy dog. It's the guy walking around saying hi to a lot of people, or the guy standing around people are gravitating to, right? So those are easy. This one's a little creepy, but it's amazing for its effectiveness, right? If this is a panel, and there's a bunch of people in the room, usually what happens when the panel's done is the people step off, and what happens to people that want to talk to them?
Huge line.
They line up to talk to him, and that guy's standing there and talking, and you're about 15 people back waiting to talk to him. What happens when you're standing in line is the person in front of you is usually looking which direction. So you see the back of their head. What do you learn? What I do is I go up, if the panelist was standing here, I go up and I'll walk up and I'll stand right beside him. And they'll look and they'll do a double take. And some people will think you're cutting in line, but I'm not. I stand there and I'm intently listening, and they realize I'm just listening to the questions. All right? But it does 3 things for me. Number one, as a CEO, I'm always curious how you answer questions. Right? When the same people are asking the same questions and you're having to politely tell them yes or no, or I'm always curious what questions are asked and how people answer. Number 2, I get to hear what every one of those Nimrods in line is pitching the CEO. So now rather than me bouncing around trying to figure out who to talk to, I just heard 20 people pitch what they're doing to the same guy I want to talk to. So now I'm like, oh, here's the 4 people I should talk to because I know what they do. Right? So now I get to hear the people and talk rather than bouncing around on name tags. But the third one is I get to learn what the CEO is doing or what's important to him. and I get to learn who he's going to defer people off to. Right? And I did this as an example. I've done it so many times. One of the examples I use is with a guy named Bobby Kennedy from River Keepers. Right? I was at the CAA in LA. CAA's got this beautiful stadium, the seating thing. And Bobby Kennedy was there. He has something called the River Keepers, which is all about water. And we were doing a water conservation product. So I went and stood next to him and was listening, and people were all lined up. And one of them was Lisa Boyle from the Plastic Pollution Coalition, which the reason you guys can't use plastic bags anymore in grocery stores is because of Lisa. So I heard her pitch in Bobby about the evils of plastic, and Mr. Kennedy was like, well, I understand that, but plastic's always going to be here. There's only certain things you can eliminate. Like, here's the advantage. Like, he was not being argumentative, but he had a political, it was just fascinating, because she's pitching the elimination of bags, and 3 years later she got a law passed. When I was standing there watching her try and do it. But the point was, as these people kept going through, Mr. Kennedy would refer them to different people. Oh, well, you know, that's really Nancy in my office. Oh, that's Joe, my chief of staff. And, you know, oh, with River Keepers, yeah, we're really working on this. That's our next big initiative. So after about 15 people, there were only 2 or 3 people left. And I had to go, I said, and I interrupted him. I said, Mr. Kennedy, by the way, it's been a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot. Just real quick, remember the River Keeper initiative that you said Joe was handling for you? I have something that I think could help you guys with that goal. I'd love to talk to Joe. That was it. I didn't even tell him what I did. He looked at me. It was the funniest thing. He said, do you have a pen? I'm like, yes, sir. Just give me your pen. Gets his card out. I hadn't seen him he gave 1 card out to 15 people. Grabbed his card, wrote on the back, here's my personal cell phone. You call me, I'll put you in touch with Joe. It's like, thank you, sir. Didn't even say what I did. It was just by standing and listening to him, I knew one of the goals for what he was trying to do. I knew the person he was going to send it to anyway. And I said, hey, I have something that I think could help you with that goal you're trying to accomplish. All right? So standing next to the speaker is really interesting because it gives you a lot of different insights. Everything from what other people in the room are doing to what you want to accomplish and ways to talk to people. Listen to the questions, learn who to speak to within the organization based on their answers. This one is really helpful when you start, I don't want to be pejorative in terms of casting, but when you start elevating up, there's certain events where, you know, you've got people that you just can't approach out of the blue. And this is a way to do it. Like the Milken one that I was just at, Michael does an amazing job. There was one event, one of the sessions, Eric Schmidt from Google, head of the World Bank, head of the IMF, Jamie Dimon, the head of SoftBank. I can't even remember. There's like $1 trillion worth of wealth and power and influence with 9 guys on a panel. You know, those are hard ones you don't just walk up and start pitching to. So these are ways to just maneuver your way in a little better. I just did this the other day with Wilbur Ross, who's the head of commerce for Trump. Because I needed something with that P5 initiative, the innovation, because it falls under the innovation side. This was a perfect example. I stood next to Wilbur for a little while, and everybody was talking and pitching and giving them cards, and Mr. Ross is trying. And finally, at one point, I interrupted and said, you know, Mr. Ross, great job with everybody. By the way, your chief of staff you mentioned handles the innovation initiative. Is she here? It's like, yeah, she's right there. I said, great, thank you, sir. I'm going to talk to her. He goes, no problem. I didn't even, it was like his chief of staff is the one that handled everything, but it was just standing around listening to find out who to talk to in the organization. So that's some extra tips on that. There you go. There's my information. There's LinkedIn if you want it, Facebook, all that. If you want the full presentation that you had asked for earlier, let me know and I'll send the whole thing to you.
Okay.
And you guys can kind of go through it. So,
Yeah, that would be good.
cool.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, answers? Everybody run to the restroom? Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna send you an email right now. So I can
Okay.
do the presentation.
Yeah, I know. I get the same.
Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Been fun.
So you can
Yeah,
say
thank you
have
so
a
much.
meeting, like you're trying to get to somebody, but you manage to get to their assistant. Would you still phrase the question of what I can do to help you, or what I can do to help their boss, basically?
Well, like with Wilbur, the chief of staff, she's the one who handles the initiative anyway.
Okay.
So whatever she does, it's her KPI, her performance indicators, is to manage the innovation initiative. So even if I had talked to Wilbur and said, here's what I'm doing, he said, yeah, that's great, he's still going to defer me down to the right person to implement it.
I see.
So if I just find out who that person is and go straight there, my goal is still to get the deal done. Mr. Ross wouldn't be the one doing it anyway. It's somebody else in the organization.
Right. Okay.
You know, but I went top down because I saw I saw Wilbur and went and talked to him, but it was me just listening to see who he wanted. I knew it wouldn't be him that did it. I just needed to know who in his organization to talk to.
Right. That's good.
Well, thank you, Stephen.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Here's a little
Oh, cool.
token of our appreciation.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so